literalmente eu passei pelos 5 continentes e sempre com um objetivo, né? Utilizar os muros não simplesmente por uma questão estética, mas também para passar algum tipo de mensagem dentro dos universos, obviamente, que o meu trabalho transita.
This project emerged 2 or 3 years ago, and it's the natural unfolding of the murals I've done all over the world. And I've literally been to 5 continents, and the objective has always been the same, not to use murals strictly as an aesthetic medium, but as a way to transmit messages.
Então, esse projeto, a ideia inicial era fazer entre 15 e 20 painéis aqui na cidade de Nova York.
The initial idea was to paint 15 to 20 panels here in New York City.
Desculpa. Eu consegui concluir, na realidade eu estava lá agora de manhã e volto para lá daqui a pouco, 18 painéis, na verdade 17 tem mais um, são 18 painéis. E todos eles estão conectados e ligados e falam de uma forma geral sobre paz, sobre racismo, sobre os imigrantes, sobre violência, todos esses temas que já vêm sendo tratados pela minha obra, pelos lugares por onde eu tenho passado.
We've actually concluded 18 after initially planning to do less, and this morning, once this is over, I'm going back to conclude work on them, and they're all intertwined. They deal with general themes such as peace, racism, immigration, and they're all tied into the themes that I have explored in my murals all over the world.
Okay, so I would like you to tell us why in New York, and then we can jump into this mural, The Grave of 9/11.
Bom, a história de ser em Nova York, primeiro porque Nova York é uma cidade bastante importante na minha história, na minha trajetória. Acredito que para todos os artistas de rua, porque eu comecei a pintar por influência de artistas aqui de Nova York da década de 80, como Jean-Michel Basquiat, Kate Herron e Coptu, tantos outros que pintavam os trens e etc e tal. Isso teve um grande impacto no mundo todo. E era um sonho para mim ter obras aqui em Nova York. Então, estar aqui em Nova York hoje e concluindo essa série também é uma concretização de um sonho, de ter a oportunidade de pintar no lugar onde os mestres da street art, as referências que eu tenho na street art, pintaram. Então, para mim, é um privilégio. Por isso.
The story of why I'm in New York, because New York has always been very important to my history as an artist and my trajectory. The street artists that I was influenced were from New York, and this is where the street art began. Influences like Basquiat and Keith Haring and so many others, people who were doing graffiti art on trains. So it's always been a dream of mine to work in New York City, and to be able to conclude works here is really a dream come true. And this is really the place where the masters of street art come from. So it's a privilege to be able to do this work here in New York.
We ended up not talking about 9/11. Alex, can you go back one? Let's just talk about this mural and the symbols that are in Brave of 9/11.
Esse painel, esse prédio, é um prédio que havia me convidado há cerca de 3 ou 4 anos atrás para pintar tanto esse painel como o da lateral. E não havia sido possível concretizar isso, porque eu estava fazendo painéis em outras partes. Porém, agora, com o projeto, nós retomamos o contato e eu apresentei para ele essa opção, que eu queria fazer realmente um painel homenageando os heróis aí do 11 de setembro. E intitulei como Bravos do 11 de setembro. Uma curiosidade sobre esse painel, ele tem algumas coisas, que é o número 343, que são números de bombeiros e oficiais que morreram naquele dia. A bandeira dos Estados Unidos, ela está numa posição simbolizando as torres gêmeas, e as estrelas, onde o bombeiro está ajoelhado, simbolizam todas as outras vidas que foram perdidas naquele dia. E eu tive bastante interessante, porque esse bombeiro retratado aí, ele sobreviveu a esse dia e ele até nos visitou aí no mural. Tivemos aí a visita também de outros bombeiros da cidade. Então é isso. E levamos, sei lá, 10 dias para concluir essa obra.
So this panel, we had been invited to work on this building 3 or 4 years ago, and it never actually occurred. And we were invited to do the front and the side, and it had been impossible because of the other projects I was doing. So we retook the project, and I presented this option to the owners of the property, that we would honor the heroes of 9/11, and I called it the Braves of 9/11. And the number 343 on the helmet is the number of firefighters and police who perished. And the U.S. flag, you can see, lines up as if it were the Twin Towers. And he is kneeled down, and in honor of all the people who died. This firefighter depicts a firefighter who actually survived. He came and visited us, as did other firefighters who were there on that day. It took me 10 days to conclude this work.
Okay, next slide, please. I would like to talk with Eric Miles about Groundswell. Before we see the Groundswell murals, I would like Eric to talk about the Groundswell vision to us.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming here. It's a great honor to speak to you today. Groundswell is a nonprofit arts organization that has been around in New York for 22 years, and we work with about 1,000 teenagers every year to paint murals across the city. Over 22 years, we painted around 600 murals. We work with anywhere from 30 to 40 teaching artists, like mediada, who's here today. And our work is really about youth development, empowering youth to speak to issues of social change, important issues in their communities, combined with arts education. We provide rigorous arts education for the youth, and really thinking about youth as whole children, people who have amazing abilities, who face incredible challenges in their lives. And through combining social justice and youth development and arts education, we're empowering youth to become leaders in their schools, leaders in their communities, and leaders in the society. We often use the term artivist, combining artists and activists, because we really see art as a tool that youth can use to speak their mind, to tackle really challenging issues that are important to all of us. We work in all 5 boroughs in New York City, and we really work with students starting in about 8th grade and going until they're 19 years old. After many years, we have veteran youth that become alumni who are 19 to 24, and we work with them and through a pathway where they become teaching artists in their own right.
So this is a project in 2016 that you developed in Bronx Hope. I would like you to explain the differences in this specific panel, and how were the students that were part of this and the community partners.
Right, so this is an example of our groundswell process. And when you look at any one of our murals, it does not just have one artist or author, but it has many. In this case, we worked with a group of youth that were involved with the courts in New York City. They were in a non-secure detention facility where they had regular classes during the day, and then they had after-school programs after school. So when we come in and meet with youth and a community partner, we have it starts with a community conversation where we talk to the teachers, the staff, community members about their ideas, their challenges in their lives, what they want to see. And then we go through a process, and this one took around 16 two-hour sessions in which we work with the youth to brainstorm a theme. They do research where we're building their critical thinking skills. If they're trying to make connections of the challenges in their lives to historical movements from the civil rights era, they have to do research to figure out what all this information that's going to pour into their design, where it is, what it comes from, what it looks like. And many of our youth, they come to us without much experience with art and with art making, but they have an incredible set of skills and intelligence around critical thinking. And so our work is really to help them take ideas and turn them into symbols, and then work collaboratively together and with our teaching artists to take all these different ideas around the theme and coalesce them into one unified image. So in this case, each piece of the mural that you see here involves one of the ideas that the youth brought. And so the main theme of this mural was about personal transformation and hope. Many of them in circumstances that they wanted to look beyond. They wanted to create pathways in their life so that they can improve their own actions in life and achieve their own goals. So if you look here, the figure on the left and the top is blowing a dandelion, and the seeds from that are trickling down in a cycle that then plant seeds and have sprouts that grow up beyond the bottom of the composition, which is dark and often negative, and burst through the sidewalk into what they propose is an optimistic future. The youth are involved in drawing and collaging and researching for weeks before they ever get to the point where they're actually fabricating the mural on the wall. And then they learn how to grid the design onto the wall, how to paint it. So the youth are involved through every part of the process, all the way until the end, until we have a final dedication. And in the dedications, we let the youth really speak to the transformative power of the process. And we try to draw in youth from programs like this, where we have working with youth who are incarcerated. We try to draw them into our programs, into our studio programs in Brooklyn. We have after-school programs which involve portfolio development, mural making, and from there they can become part of our Summer Leadership Institute, where they're paid $15 an hour for the whole summer. And for many of our youth, it's their first time with a full-time job, and through their own words, they can't say enough of how important this is in their life.
Thank you, Eric. So let's go, let's talk about this other panel, Passing Wisdom, Planting Seeds. This is another example of a project that Groundswell had, but this time it's with women artists. Can you talk about this?
This is part of a program called Voices Heard, and it was evident early on in the history of our organization that youth that identify as young women needed their own space to address some of the issues that are really important to them in their communities, to take on and tackle issues of racism and sexism, and talk about their own internal strengths and the resources, the collective kind of personal resources and human resources in their own communities. And this is a good example of a mural that is tied directly to the community that it is in, and that's in North Crown Heights in Brooklyn. And it's an Afro-Caribbean community, and this mural takes on figures that address different generations that are present, and it's called Passing Knowledge, Planting Seeds. And so it's really important to talk about the passing along of ancestral information throughout the years. And this, like many of our murals, starts with conversations with individuals and nonprofits, community-based organizations, schools in the neighborhood, and trying to involve as many stakeholders as we can in the project. So usually we start with just having flyers and emails and trying to get everybody who is interested in putting together a message to come to the same table, to come to the same conversation. Okay. This long list of foundations really addresses the issue of how we make these works, what makes it possible. As you might guess, social justice murals don't make a lot of money, not for us, and we rely on New York State grants, council members' donations, individual donations, and foundations that support this work. And for any one project and for any group of projects within a program, we are getting about this many foundations involved in the support of the work. As I mentioned, we are not only paying for all the insurance and the materials and paying for teaching artists, but we're also paying our youth to paint these murals. And we're trying to support our youth in college and career planning and social and emotional supports and other pour-ins that are outside the scope of the mural. And these funders really help us do that work and be able to really track the success of our programs over the years.
Thank you, Eric. Kobra, I've been asked a lot about how it works for you in the funding. Who is involved, and is it the owners of the walls, or how does it work for you?
Bom, tô admirado aqui de ver a quantidade de apoiadores. A minha realidade é um pouco diferente, até por conta da minha origem, do local carente de onde eu nasci e tudo mais. Então, a maioria das coisas que eu fiz, eu tive realmente que batalhar muito. E o projeto aqui de Nova York, por exemplo, ele só aconteceu devido ao apoio de muitas pessoas que, voluntários mesmo, que abraçaram a causa e resolveram nos ajudar. Como é o caso do Tiago, do Sofia, da Andressa, da Larissa, do Josué, tantas pessoas que acabaram se doando para que esse projeto pudesse acontecer. Agora, de uma forma geral, eu criei uma forma para conseguir viabilizar os meus muros nas ruas. Foi algo que eu tive que desenvolver, porque no começo, a forma que eu encontrei para continuar seguindo o meu caminho com a arte foi fazer algumas obras, alguns trabalhos comissionados. O que eram os trabalhos comissionados? Eu pintei desde porta de oficina mecânica até escolinha de Turma da Mônica. Então eu pintei de tudo para conseguir o financiamento para seguir com as minhas obras autorais, vamos dizer assim. Com o passar do tempo, isso foi lá em 1994, por aí. com o passar do tempo, eu criei uma outra maneira de lidar com isso. Todas as obras que eu faço nas ruas, tem uma tela que é uma original dessa obra. E eu acabo disponibilizando isso para algumas galerias. E parte do dinheiro que eu arrecado com isso, eu acabo investindo nos painéis que eu faço pela cidade. Mas é claro que agora, depois de 30 anos pintando, tem sim aproximação de muitas empresas e tudo mais. Só que eu sou muito criterioso também em relação à associação com marcas. Eu fiz já algumas coisas, mas quando a marca respeita o meu conceito, o meu caminho, a direção que o meu trabalho está seguindo, eu acho que se torna uma relação saudável e possível. Por exemplo, eu tive uma marca que nos apoiou aqui com hospedagem, alguma parte logística, tal, etc. Foi super importante. Mas quando a marca quer interferir na criação, no conceito ou algo assim, que geralmente acontece, eu não sei se aqui nos Estados Unidos é assim, mas pelo menos no Brasil acontece isso. Então, o caminho fica mais difícil, porque é óbvio. Hoje alguém pode me convidar para pintar um prédio, por exemplo. Pode ser uma empresa. Mas ela precisa me dar liberdade criativa. Eu até posso mostrar o que eu quero fazer, como foi o caso do desenho dos bombeiros. Eu mostrei o que eu queria fazer e eles autorizaram, mas não interferiram na minha parte criativa. Então, é um equilíbrio bastante complexo, né?
So I actually had to create a model, and I'm admiring the huge number of supporters you have. My reality has been rather different, and partly because of the where I came from, and the poor neighborhood that I was that I came out of. And because of this, I always had to fight for everything. I was always trying to, I've always had to depend on the help of volunteers. For example, this latest project, Tiago, Sofia, Larissa, Josué, and Andressa, and many others have generously helped with their time, and that's essential for these kinds of work. But generally, I've had to create my own formula to make these works happen. For example, I have, in the very beginning when I started out, I looked to do any work where I could still keep the rights to that work. It might have been a garage for fixing cars, a mechanic's office, a daycare center where I would paint Monica pictures, which was the old Brazilian cartoon images, anything to be able to continue. That was in the beginning, and around 1994, I came up with a new method, and essentially I would do a panel, and I would keep a painting that would reflect that same panel, and I would make those available to art galleries. And then the work generated from that I would reinvest in my street art. But I was always very rigorous as to who I would collaborate with, and it's really important to me that the brand respects my work. They have to buy into it, and the brand, for example, in this project I did in New York, they offered me room and board and logistics. But whenever they interfere, and this does happen in Brazil, then it becomes an issue. So I need to have creative freedom, as I did with this work of the firefighters in New York. And only when that happens can I really do my work.
Thank you, Kobra. So in the next slide, thank you. We'll go back now to we'll have a number of slides with murals that were painted in the last 5 months here in New York as part of Colors of Liberty. And I would like Kobra to know how do you elect your characters? Why do you pick, for example, Roy Lichtenstein and the other ones that we'll show after?
Seguindo um padrão do meu trabalho, eu sempre faço uma pesquisa histórica, uma pesquisa iconográfica nos lugares onde eu passo, pelas cidades onde eu visito. E aqui em Nova York, especificamente, o Roy Lichtenstein é um artista que também exerceu uma influência, obviamente, que na minha obra, no conceito, na minha criação e tudo mais. E eu queria realmente fazer alguma coisa sobre o Lichtenstein aqui na cidade. E acabei realmente fazendo esse painel que mostra um paralelo aí com o rosto, que já é algo clássico do que eu costumo fazer, e da apresentação do meu trabalho em relação ao Lichtenstein, que é uma figura considerada aí um dos pais da pop art também.
So whenever I come to a city, I do research. I do historical research, iconographic research. I do this in all the cities where I work. And in New York, Roy Lichtenstein came to mind. I've been influenced by his work. I've been influenced by his concepts, and I wanted to honor him. And I did that precisely with this work, where you can see half the face is more in my traditional style, and the other half is an homage to Lichtenstein.
Yeah, you can follow up with Michael Jackson.
Sobre o painel do Michael, de uma forma geral, ele é um painel que eu estou falando um pouco da história, da trajetória do Michael Jackson, que de alguma forma também é associado a todas as questões que ele passou, questões relacionadas a racismo, questões relacionadas a bullying. Então, esse mural mostra a trajetória do Michael Jackson. Então, você vê que de um menino lindo, integrante do Jackson 5, que todos nós amávamos e tudo mais, todas as transformações que ele fez durante a sua vida. Então, esse mural é justamente para mostrar essas transformações, né? De um cabelo black power, passou a ter um cabelo liso, cirurgias no nariz, na boca, em todas as partes. Então, esse muro é para falar realmente sobre essas transformações.
So, as far as Michael Jackson is concerned, I wanted to talk about his history and his trajectory, and I wanted to convey everything that he went through, everything from racism through bullying. He started out as a beautiful child in Jackson 5, who we all loved so much, and I wanted to show his transformation from the Afro and the Black Power image to straight hair and the plastic surgery in the nose and the mouth, and show his entire trajectory and the transformations he went through.
Ok. Acho que o painel do Stop Guns, ele foi autorizado aí por esse prédio e acabou sendo uma coincidência de estar no pátio de uma escola. E ele fala sobre a questão do menino que pega a arma em casa e acha tão natural chegar na escola com a arma e acaba fazendo um selfie, e a gente sabe que existe um número muito grande de crianças que estão sendo vítimas de armas de fogo, não só aqui nas escolas nos Estados Unidos, mas também no Brasil, no mundo todo. Então esse mural é justamente um alerta, né, para mostrar realmente o perigo que é você ter uma arma de fogo em casa, o perigo que é você ter uma arma de fogo ao acesso das crianças, né, ao acesso dos meninos, que muitas vezes, por questões que poderiam ser resolvidas com um diálogo, com uma conversa, algo assim, acabam partindo para a violência e levando as armas para a escola. E o interessante é que eu acabei tendo contato com a diretoria dessa escola e acabei tendo uma conversa com os alunos lá e tudo mais, e todos eles acabaram recebendo bem a mensagem que eu quis transmitir através dessa obra. E se você percebeu o detalhe, é como se realmente o menino estivesse numa sala de aula e por mais que a professora deixou uma mensagem na lousa, ele mesmo assim está portando uma arma. E uma curiosidade sobre esse muro, para produzir esse painel, eu fiz baseado, claro que primeiro eu fiz a criação e na sequência eu fiz partindo de uma fotografia que é o meu sobrinho aí, que está retratado aí na imagem.
So, as far as this image is concerned, it's essentially, it's called Stop Guns. It was authorized by the building owners. Coincidentally, it's right next to a school, and the school, it looks out onto a schoolyard, and it conveys the dangers of guns at home. And the child obviously is found a gun and is taking a selfie of himself. And this is a reality of so many children, not only in the U.S., but in Brazil and all over the world. And it's meant to be a warning of the dangers of having guns at home, and especially guns that are accessible to children, and especially boys, and how dialogue really should be what they use, our children use, and unfortunately have access to guns. And essentially I had the good fortune of talking to the principal after I did this, and he told me, he invited me to speak to the students, and I think they all really received the message in a very positive way. And as you can see, it's as if he were in a classroom and the teacher has put on the chalkboard, "Stop guns," but he's not getting the message, essentially. Interesting also is that the child is a likeness of my nephew.
Thank you. We'll move now to the last panel, and then we'll see Groundswell again. But I think this is a moment where we can see the difference in the landscape when we have a white wall and we have a panel. So this image is quite compelling. Do you want to talk about this?
Bom, uma semelhança é a forma que o desenho é feito, realmente com quadriculados. Eu percebi que eles também utilizam o mesmo método.
So it's one of the similarities is the use of quadrangles, which it happens to be something similar to what Groundswell works with.
Also, this design specifically having the stairs that are such a trademark of the city of New York, in between the Madre Teresa and Gandhi, is a photograph that anywhere you see, you know it happened in New York.
O nome desse mural é Tolerância, justamente para falar de uma coisa que realmente o mundo hoje está muito carente, por isso que nós vemos tantos episódios de violência entre as pessoas, e aí eu estou falando da relação das religiões, do respeito pelas religiões. E aí temos a Madre Teresa com o Gandhi num símbolo de oração. Eu tentei posteriormente fazer um painel similar a esse, anteriormente, na Índia. E por mais que na Índia tenham milhões de deuses e religiões e tudo mais, Um painel similar a esse, eles não permitiram que fosse feito lá, por mais que eu tivesse explicado que a ideia do mural é tolerância e tudo mais, mas eles só permitiram a pintura do Gandhi. Então, realmente, acho que eu não consegui atingir o objetivo da mensagem lá, mas consegui atingir o objetivo da mensagem aqui em Nova York. Uma curiosidade é que a imagem real aí não tinha as mãos nessa posição. Então, a mão do Gandhi, por exemplo, é a minha mão. E a mão que está na madre é a mão do meu parceiro do Aguinaldo.
The name of this piece is Tolerance, and it's precisely something that's so missing in the world right now, and we're seeing so many problems with violence and hate crimes, and this is meant to show a respect for religion, and that's why I have Mother Teresa and Gandhi together in prayer. I tried to do this same mural in India, and interestingly, although they have thousands of gods and many years of religious teachings, they would not allow this painting. They said that they would only allow the image of Gandhi, and I explained to them that it was about tolerance, but they wouldn't permit me to paint it. And I had to come to New York to finish it. Interestingly, the hands are that one of them is mine, and the other one is my partner Aguinaldo's hands. Gandhi's is mine.
Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about Compass of Dreams. That's a panel done in Brooklyn, and Michaela, I would like you to talk about it and tell us how this project went.
Hello. Thank you for having us today. So this is Compass of Dreams, and it is a handball court in the Tompkins houses in Bed-Stuy. This was a part of our SLI project in 2016. This handball court hadn't been in use for some time, so we decided to repurpose it with a mural. And we have the mural here, and we have one on the other side as well, and we even painted at the end the floor as well, the ground. So the genesis of this design was really a reflection on the community, right? Our community partners wanted something vibrant, they wanted something that spoke to the youth, but at the same time we were in the middle of a very difficult summer. It was the summer where Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were shot by police. So as teaching artists, right, at Groundswell, we seek to create a space where our students can grow and be inspired, but also deal with some of the difficulties that are happening in the real world. So we thought it was important to, at once, create something that was going to inspire, like this side does, where it kind of speaks to hope and speaks to youth, and thinking of their futures and what they want to be. But the other side, as you will see, is speaking more, speaking more to the storm and things that are out of our control, and how you go through them together.
You can follow up and tell us about the experience of working with this team, and who was part of the Tompkins House, and where these people are coming from.
Yes, so this is, well, this picture up here is more of a process shot during probably the middle of the summer, and then over here is when we were wrapped up with our council member partner. But yeah, so as Eric mentioned earlier, our way of collaborating is very much trying to get as many voices as possible included. So we had an active community partner in this at Tompkins Houses. She was one of the council leaders at their board there. And so we had a lot of the elders that were influential in our design process. And then later, while we were in the midst of painting, there were youth that lived in Tompkins that would come to the basketball court and would come to play and were seeing us painting and wanted to get involved. So we always have a community paint day. So that was nice because they noticed us in the process, and then community paint day came and they came and joined us in painting.
Thank you, Michaela. Let's go to the next one. And Kobra, you had problems with weather here, which is a day like this, if it's raining, you cannot paint, right, in general. So I'd like you to talk about this. Also, you use the scissors lift. And then I will pass to Eric to talk about how Groundswell work around it.
Bom, de uma forma, cada prédio, cada local exige um tipo de equipamento diferente, né, se for para falar sobre os equipamentos também. Por exemplo, para pintar um prédio, eu já pintei um prédio de 96 metros de altura. Para pintar um prédio, são balancinhos, plataformas elevatórias, né? Esse tipo de parede é feita com esse lift. Dependendo da altura, também é possível fazer utilizando escadas. E também tem aquela plataforma articulada lá, que é essa, e tem a outra que é tipo uma girafinha, esqueci o nome agora. Mas é claro, estar pintando na rua é justamente tem esse lado complexo, porque tem a ver com condições climáticas, tem a ver com estar no frio, estar na chuva. Quando eu cheguei aqui em Nova York, acho que estava uns 40 graus. E agora, tipo, eu passei por, acho que todas as estações, as principais estações, e agora está muito frio, e pintar no frio realmente é complicado. Então, justamente eu programei o meu projeto para durar até agora, esse mês, já prevendo as condições climáticas, porque eu, particularmente, não tenho experiência para poder produzir murais no frio. Eu sei que eu já conheci artistas da Europa e tudo mais, tem uma equipe grande na França de muralismo que pode estar abaixo de zero, os caras estão lá pintando. Mas eu, quando dá uns 9 graus, eu já não aguento mais, então eu prefiro voltar para o Brasil.
Each building and each location is unique, and they require their own strategy and equipment. I've painted buildings as high as 96 meters high, and typically you will have the platforms which you can bring up and down with pulleys as needed. This one we did with the with the lift, and depending on the height, we can also use ladders, but every one is unique. And of course, doing street art, the weather is always an issue. There's rain, there's wind, and essentially, when I arrived for this project, it was 40 degrees Celsius, and this project has seen all seasons. And I tried to schedule it so it would precisely end right now. I essentially tried to foresee this because I know that in Europe and France there are mural artists who work at below 0 temperatures. I'm not one of them. If it's below 9 degrees Celsius, I try not to work at all.
Eric, can you tell us about the way Groundswell does it?
Well, similarly, outside in the summer, we love working on scaffolding with youth. Sometimes we go up, 1 or 2 stories. At most, we go up 4 stories with fixed scaffolding that is bolted into the wall. We cannot use scissor lifts. We're always thinking about the safety of our youth. Anytime they're on fixed scaffolding, up to 4 stories, they have to go through a training process so they can be safe on the scaffolding. But we also paint murals year-round, and a lot of our murals from November through mid-May are in schools. They're indoor murals, which are great. They're often in hallways or gymnasiums. But we also use a technique called parachute cloth. And parachute cloth is a little bit like a very thin canvas. And in this way, we can paint indoors in our studio in Gowanus, Brooklyn. And we will tack onto the wall these large sheets of parachute cloth and then trace and project and draw and paint the murals on the parachute cloth. And then when it's warm enough, again, probably in late April, we can go install that outdoors exterior on a wall using a Nova Gel. It gets put on almost like wallpaper, and the seams have to get lined up just precisely. But it really allows us to keep painting year-round and work with partners that want an exterior mural, but they want us to paint with their youth during the winter. So, Mika, I don't know if you want to talk about, Mika just finished this last summer in a Voices Heard program, probably our largest parachute cloth mural that will probably be installed next week. It's 6 stories tall, and she worked with a group of around 20 18-year-old women on this project.
Yeah, the benefits of parachute cloth is that, like Eric said, we can work year-round, and it's a wonderful texture as well. And this summer, as was mentioned, we had a 60-foot piece that we had to just cut down into 10-foot pieces and work at like piece by piece. So there's challenges with that, but it really does allow for flexibility for us to work year-round.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Now we'll see 2 panels that are part of Colors of Liberty. No, actually 1. The other one is not. This is a panel that you painted previously, Kobra, in São Paulo, right? It was at Rua Oscar Freire, and you repainted now in New York. I would like to talk about panels that are painted on, and how do you feel about this ephemerality in art?
Bom, a arte de rua, ela por sua natureza, ela é efêmera. Eu comecei a pintar em 87, tenho mais de 3.000 fotos de obras que eu já realizei. Mas a grande maioria não existe mais. O fato de ser efêmero está ligado, obviamente, às condições climáticas, está ligado a alguma reforma que pode ser feita no local e tudo mais. Mas, de qualquer forma, nas ruas existe uma regra também. Para você ser respeitado com os seus trabalhos, você tem que respeitar também os outros artistas. Então, quando um artista pinta um determinado espaço, você só pode ocupar aquele espaço se o artista permitir. Por mais que um curador, que seja a pessoa que está organizando esses muros, me diga que eu posso pintar, mesmo assim eu consulto sempre o artista. Então, existe essa regra nas ruas e eu gosto de seguir isso justamente por respeito aos outros artistas. E de qualquer forma, a minha obra, algumas delas são removidas por motivos muitas vezes fúteis, né? Que eu acho que o momento agora é o momento de se repensar essa atitude em relação à arte de rua. Imagina se, historicamente, todos os painéis feitos por, sei lá, todos os grandes artistas aí da história do muralismo, como a gente vê hoje, obras do Banksy, né? Muitas obras do Banksy, quando ele faz, são preservadas, tantos outros artistas, do Blue também, do italiano Blue. Então, eu acho que deve se repensar os critérios para manter e para preservar as obras de arte nas ruas das cidades, né? Eu acho que deve haver um conselho deve haver uma comissão realmente dos moradores da cidade para poder eleger e decidir se aquela obra deve ou não permanecer por mais tempo ali naquele local onde ela foi feita. Por exemplo, essa obra que eu fiz, ela teve uma grande repercussão quando foi apagada, porque tomaram uma decisão de apagar uma pessoa ligada ao marketing, que resolveu remover por uma questão comercial ou publicitária e tal, que foi mais ou menos parecido com o que aconteceu com outro mural que eu tinha aqui em Nova York, do VJ Day. O mural que eu tinha aqui em Nova York, ele também foi removido e eu comecei a ser marcado em dezenas e dezenas de posts, de compartilhamento, de pessoas e tal, que não entendiam por que esse mural tinha sido removido. A princípio eu também não entendia. Mas depois eu descobri que o proprietário do prédio, por uma razão comercial, realmente resolveu retirar o mural, que havia em algum momento a possibilidade de toda essa área entrar para um processo de tombamento. E aí resolveram, na mesma noite que houve esse tipo de conversa, o mural foi removido. Então, realmente, não dá para ter apego ao trabalho, embora eu acho que tem que existir novos conceitos em relação a isso, né? Eu costumo falar que a obra realmente é efêmera e a fotografia acaba eternizando. Mas acho que tem obras realmente que devem ser reconsideradas e mantidas onde foram originalmente criadas.
Street art by nature is ephemeral. I started doing this in 1987. I have over 3,000 photographs of works I've done during that time. Many of those works don't exist now. And they're ephemeral because of the weather. They're ephemeral because buildings get brought down or they get painted. But I think we need to rethink street art. I think there needs to be a certain respect for street art. When I go in and do a work on something that's already painted, I always respect the artist. Even if a curator says that it's okay, I always consult the artist. I think it's a sign of respect. Some works are removed for simply trivial reasons, so I think we need to rethink this question of street art. I think if you think of all the great artists out there like Banksy and the Italian artist Lu, they have their work preserved. So I think maybe we can rethink this where you have councils and committees made up of residents and city members, and they can decide whether a work should last or not. And this particular piece had been erased. One of the reasons was because they were going to make it a landmark. The next day they were going to declare this area a landmark area where they couldn't change anything. So overnight they went ahead and erased it. So the owner wanted it removed. Essentially works, I like to say that the work we do is ephemeral and the photographs eternalize them.
We'll close with the last image, which is the last finished panel. There is one being painted still. But this mural is called Alice, and I would like your closing words about it.
Tá. Esse painel nós concluímos há poucos dias. Do meu projeto, Cores pela Liberdade é o maior mural, com cerca de 800 metros quadrados. A peculiaridade desse painel, que para mim tem um valor emocional muito relevante, que nessa escola, o Jean-Michel Basquiat estudou nessa escola. E esse painel, ele fala justamente sobre os imigrantes que chegaram aos milhões aqui em Nova York, através da Ellis Island. Então aí eu estou retratando com imagens reais 5 imigrantes que chegaram aqui na cidade nessa ocasião. E esse painel também foi um painel bastante complexo, com as autorizações e permissões. Levamos quase 4 meses com todas as negociações para que a gente conseguisse viabilizá-lo.
This one, we just recently concluded a few days ago for the Colors of Liberty project, and it is the largest. It's 800 square meters in size, and this had special meaning for me because this school was the same school where Jean-Michel Basquiat studied, and it honors the millions of immigrants that came through New York, and specifically through Ellis Island. These are real photographs of immigrants. It was a complicated process to get approval. It took over 4 months to get the approval for this project.
I would like to thank you, all the Brownswell, for being here today. Thank you, Studio Kobra, for providing all the images we showed, to Alex for the translation, and can you put the other one? And this is the first art talk, and the next ones are available through the Consulate Instagram. Thank you.
Queria tirar uma foto.
Uma colaboração, adoraria. Sim, vamos. Ele já não. Eu já conhecia.
Ah, não, ele conhecia, mas